A sensitive subject on the agenda right now, Iran, and I want to play for you a question that was put by one of our viewers to us in this CNN report. Turn around and you'll hear the question directly.
Hello, Mr. President. I wanted to know what you think of the build-up to war that's being obviously advocated by the Vice President and the President, the current administration, and what you think our best actions would be in regards to Iran. Thank you very much.
Well, I basically agree with Condoleezza Rice, who has taken issue with the Vice President Cheney, on whether we should promulgate a possibility of war against Iran. I've noticed that even some of the administration officials or spokesmen for them have even advocated using nuclear weapons against Iran. I think it would be a horrible mistake to attack Iran militarily. How would we invade Iran when we don't even have enough troops to give them a leave to go home to their families from Iraq? We are short on...
Well, some of these so-called experts say you could do it with air power alone, cruise missiles, bombers. You go in there and destroy their so-called nuclear facilities.
I know some experts say that. I don't agree with that. And what we should do about Iran, first of all, do not attack Iran. Secondly, what to do. I think two things, to be very brief. We don't have much time. One is to start talking to Iran, communicate with Iran. After the Shah was overthrown and the Ayatollah Khomeini took over, we continued our diplomatic relations with Iran. I had, as you know, about 75 people in Tehran, some of whom were taken prisoners, and the Iranians had about 75 of their representatives in Washington. So talk to them and communicate with them. Secondly, use strong diplomatic means to make sure they don't go ahead with the nuclear program. And I think to quit threatening to attack them, because that just increases their fervor in developing all kinds of protective devices, including maybe nuclear weapons.
You won't be surprised that Rudy Giuliani, the Republican presidential candidate, disagrees with you on this, and I'm going to play a little clip of what he says. Listen to this.
I could almost write it for him, because I know the extreme cases that he has.
All right, listen to this.
Iran is a greater danger than Iraq. Iraq cannot be seen in a vacuum, and we have to be willing to use a military option to stop Iran from becoming nuclear.
All right, what do you say to Giuliani?
He's foolish. I hope that he doesn't become president and try to impose on the American people a conviction that we need to go to a war with Iran, but we're still involved with Iraq.
Do you believe that Iran is working on a nuclear bomb?
I don't know. I think if they are, some people surmise that they are, they're several years in the future. And I think we can best deter that by diplomatic relations with them and consultations with them, and stop threatening that we're going to attack them so they won't think that they have to respond with all kinds of devices.
You know, you've been criticized for your handling of Iran when the Shah was in power, you know, in the late 70s. Looking back, all these years, knowing what's happened,
sure,
what, if anything, would you have done differently?
I would have had one more helicopter in our rescue mission, which would have brought all the hostages out safe and free. And so I had to wait from April around until 5 minutes after I was no longer president, when all the hostages did come home safe and free.
Because the argument is, as bad as the Shah was on human rights and other issues, he was an ally of the U.S. and probably better than the current regime, and that the U.S. should have stuck with him.
Well, we couldn't stick with him. He was not overthrown by anything the United States did. He was overthrown by his own people. And as I said earlier, after they did overthrow the Shah, we took care of the Shah as best we could, and we also continued our conversations with, our diplomatic relations with, the new regime.
The Senate passed a resolution the other day, co-sponsored by Senator Lieberman and Senator Kyle, saying this: it is the sense of the Senate that the United States should designate Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps as a foreign terrorist organization. Hillary Clinton, the Democratic presidential frontrunner, she voted for that resolution to pass 76 to 22. Was that a good vote on her part?
She has the complete freedom to vote the way she chooses. Had I been in the Senate, I would not have voted for it, because an earlier version of that, which I read, said that this also involved direct military action against Iran. So in effect, that vote was giving the administration the imprimatur of Congress to go to war against Iran, the same thing that she voted for earlier.
Because some of her critics said that she would indirectly give authorization to the president if he wanted to go to war against Iran by this kind of vote. Well, her critics, Democrats and Republicans.
But I'm not criticizing her. I'm just telling you the way I would have voted had I been there, because I think that a vote for that resolution about Iran opens up the possibility of the administration saying in the future, we got authority from the Congress, from the Senate, to go to war.
The Israelis bombed some sort of facility in Syria, as you know, in September. And there's now suggestions, including in the New York Times, that there's a dispute between the Vice President Dick Cheney, the Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, on what it entailed and whether the U.S. should have authorized or gone along with this. In the Times today, it says this. It has long been known that North Korean scientists have aided Damascus in developing sophisticated ballistic missile technology, and there appears to be little debate that North Koreans frequently visited a site in the Syrian desert that Israeli jets attacked September 6th. Where officials disagree is whether the accumulated evidence points to a Syrian nuclear program that poses a significant threat to the Middle East. What do you make of what, you're an expert in the Middle East, what do you make of this attack, the U.S. response, what should the U.S. response have been, and this dispute apparently that has developed between Secretary Rice and Vice President Cheney?
Well, almost without knowing the subject, if somebody asked me, do you agree with Condoleezza Rice or the Vice President, I would just say automatically, I agree with Condoleezza Rice, not even knowing what the subject is. But in this case, I don't really know. I don't have any access to any sort of intelligence briefing or the facts. My guess is, though, that the site did not involve nuclear capabilities, but it might very well have involved long-range missiles, because the North Koreans, even though it's a destitute financial country, is superb in technology development with the limited capabilities they have. I'm thoroughly familiar with that. And so my guess is that they were helping Syria develop some kind of missile technology.
And do you have a problem with the Israelis using F-16s or other U.S.-made hardware in this kind of a strike?
Well, that's a judgment for the Israelis to make. And I understand not only has the United States and Israel stayed mute, but also Syria has remained mute about it. So I don't know enough about the subject to comment.
In the new afterword to your other bestseller, Palestine, Peace Not Apartheid, you write this, you write, America must not be seen in the pocket of either side. We cannot be peacemakers if American government leaders are seen as knee-jerk supporters of every action or policy or of whatever Israeli government happens to be in power at the moment. That is the essential fact that must be faced.
Yes, that's certainly true.
You caused a big stir on the last book, as you well know. Any second thoughts?
No, not at all. And I think that finally, after 7 years of no effort to bring peace to the Middle East, the administration has now taken a very bold step, and I hope a very successful step, next month by convening talks in the United States between Israel and the Palestinians for the first time with any substance involved. This will be a very good step in the right direction, which I pray will be successful. But we can't just say we adopt all the policies of the Israeli government. Now the Palestinians can come in if they want to as a second-class citizen and hope to be successful.
Let's wind up this interview with another question from a viewer that was sent in on our iReport. Turn around and you'll hear the question.
Fine.
Hello, my name is Victor Mai, and I'm a student here in Tempe, Arizona. This question is to former President Jimmy Carter. What advice would you give to the future 44th President of the United States involving the economy, the future of Iraq, and the rising cost of tuition for college students like me?
All right, well, why don't we focus in on the rising cost of tuition for a college student like him? We've already spoken about Iraq, the economy. If you want to talk about that,
well, I've got 11 grandchildren, so I'm deeply involved in college tuition. I hope we can hold down college tuition and be quite constructive on student loans. But I think that the new president of the United States, that I pray will be a Democrat in 2009, will make a speech that I think in 20 minutes can totally transform the attitude of the rest of the world toward America, just by saying, when I'm president, we will never again resort to torture. When I'm president, we will honor all international agreements which have been consummated by my predecessors concerning the control of nuclear weapons. When I'm president, I'm going to join and be the leader of the rest of the world in protecting the quality of our environment. And now that I'm president, if he or she's already taken office, to say, I want our country to raise high the banner of human rights. And we will once again be the leaders of these things. I think in those few moments, which might only take 10 minutes of an inaugural speech, we can completely transform the negative image that the United States now has around the world into a positive image.
The book is entitled Beyond the White House, Waging Peace, Fighting Disease, Building Hope. The author is Jimmy Carter. Mr. President, thanks for coming in.
I've enjoyed it, Wolf. Thank you very much.
We call this